Hello, everyone. I am Selena Gore, the CEO of WomenHeart. For those of you who are new to our organization, WomenHeart is the first and only patient-centered organization focused exclusively on women living with and at risk of heart disease in providing support, education, and advocacy for the issues that mean the most to them. I'd like to welcome you to this special live interview honoring both Heart Month and Black History Month through our Her Heart, Her History campaign. It's an awareness-raising initiative spotlighting heart disease among Black women and celebrating the courageous Black women who have contributed to improving the health of women living with heart disease. And as we share the stories of our champions, we hope that their journeys and stories and their commitment and passion to education and advocacy will empower others to prioritize their own heart health. So today I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm joined by one of our dedicated WomenHeart champions, Tannie Coward. So Tannie, before we delve into your heart story, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit more about who you are.
First of all, thank you, Selena, for giving me this opportunity. I am Tannie Coward, as you said. I'm a wife to a wonderful husband, Oscar, and I have three amazing adult children, Tanae, Danielle, and Desmond. And I am a woman living with heart disease.
Now let's get into your heart story a little bit. Can you sort of start us from the beginning and talk us through what happened to you?
Yeah, sure. About 20 years ago, I started having heartburn really, really bad. Mm-hmm. Of course, I was going to the doctor and I was being prescribed meds for heartburn. But I had a job where I had to actually get tuberculosis tests every year. And one of my tests came back a little suspect. So, of course, I had to go get the chest x-ray. I went to the doctor, got the chest x-ray. And I remember this young man, it was a very young guy. And he asked me when he was doing the chest x-ray, "Ma'am, can you breathe?" And this was about 20 years ago. And I was like, "Yeah, I can breathe. Why are you asking?" And he just kind of blew it off and was like, "Never mind." So, of course, that stayed in the back of my head. So I went to my primary care doctor. And I mentioned it to her and I was like, "Hey, I went to get a TB test and the guy asked me, could I breathe? What was that all about? Can you check my x-rays?"
Yeah.
And she said that she checked it and she was like, "Yeah, I don't see anything. There's nothing to worry about." Well, a couple of years later, I started having more heartburn and it was more severe. And of course, I kept going back to her. I would even kind of sometimes go to urgent care. That's how bad it was. Mm-hmm. And they would just say, "You just have a really, really bad case of GERD. We're going to give you some medicine. Stop eating spicy foods," which I really don't eat spicy foods anyway.
Okay.
And, it just kept getting worse. And then she said, I started gaining weight. I started gaining a lot of weight. And she said, "Well, you're at the age."
That was not doing anything different. You were gaining weight.
Doing nothing different.
Everything the same.
Not eating anything different, not doing anything different. I just started gaining a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And when I mentioned it to my doctor, "Hey, I'm gaining a lot of weight," she said, "Well, you're in the age of menopause, so that's normal."
Okay.
And she's the doctor, she's the expert. So I kept saying, "Okay, that's what you say." And one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I was gasping for air. I literally could not breathe. And by this time I was sleeping on 3 or 4 pillows, trying to make myself comfortable so that I could, make it through the night. I was having a hard time walking a long distance. I would get out of breath. And of course, she just kept saying, "You need to lose weight. You're just gaining a lot of weight. You're getting a little overweight. You need to lose weight." So when I woke up that morning, it was a Saturday morning and I was gasping for breath. I got up and I went to urgent care. And when I got to urgent care, I had already self-diagnosed myself. I went to Google and Google told me, "Yeah, you probably have an upper respiratory infection." So I went with my husband. We went to the urgent care and the doctor at the urgent care told me that he asked me, he came back, he did the chest x-ray, and then he came back, he said, "Did you drive yourself here?" I said, "No, I did not." And he said, well, can I go get your husband in the lobby? And I was like, sure. Well, he was my fiance at the time. I said, sure.
Okay.
So he, went and got my now husband. And he said, I need you to drive her to a hospital immediately. And we live in a suburb of Houston. So he was like, not one of the suburb hospitals. I need you to take her to the medical center. And he's talking to him. And I'm looking at him like, hello, I'm standing right here. Because I literally did not feel that bad.
Right.
So, I'm thinking in my mind, this is urgent care. I'll go to my primary doctor Monday because this was a Saturday. So, and he gave me my x-ray on the jump drive. He said, and I need you to give this to them when you get to the hospital. So when we stepped outside, I told Oscar, I was like, we can go ahead and run our errands today. It's just an upper respiratory infection. I'll go to my primary doctor Monday.
But Tannie, so that urgent care doc didn't tell you why he was so alarmed?
No. He did not. He just said, I need you to, what I'm seeing, I'm not sure, but I know we can't handle it here. But he did not tell me what it was.
Wow.
But I contribute him to saving my life, actually, because he really acted fast on it.
Yeah.
And I actually was kind of blowing it off. And I told Oscar, I'll just go Monday. And he was like, no, we're going to go to the hospital now. So I went to the hospital in the medical center. And I got out, he dropped me off, and I walked in. I gave the emergency room nurse my x-ray on the jump drive. And I said, hey, I just came from this urgent care. They told me to give you guys this and that I needed to see a doctor here in the emergency room. And when she popped it in, she looked at me and she was like, did you walk in here by yourself? I was like, I did. And she said, well, let's take another x-ray because this one must not be correct. So I said, okay. So we did another chest x-ray. And when we did that chest x-ray, she said, we're going to go ahead and admit you, but first we need you to sign some paperwork. We need to know if your heart stops, do you want life-saving measures? And I'm thinking, all of this for an upper respiratory infection? And they did admit me into the hospital. And about 4 or 5 days later, they had gotten all the fluid off of me. They actually drained 36 pounds of fluid off of my body.
Oh my goodness, Tannie.
They drained 36 pounds of fluid off of me. And so I was actually getting ready to go home. The admitting doctor had came in because I did not have a cardiologist at the time, of course.
Yeah.
So he comes in and he says, hey, everything looks good. Your vitals look great. We're going to go ahead and discharge you today. I just want you to see one more doctor. And I was like, great. I literally got up and started packing my bags because I felt 100% better.
Right.
And
right.
so
and at that point, Tannie, all they were treating for you was retention of fluid, and they were draining the fluid, and they thought they'd solved the issue.
Well, I think the doctor knew something else because he wanted me to see one more doctor. And if that doctor signed off on it, I think he was going to let me go home and possibly treat me as an outpatient.
Okay.
So the doctor comes in and I saw on his jacket, it said cardiologist. And I thought, So the doctor comes in, the cardiologist comes in, and he says, tell me about your dad. And I just thought that was weird for him to ask me about that. Yeah. My dad had died at 45 years old from a massive heart attack. And of course, that was in my family history. And I explained my dad died at 45 years old, from a massive heart attack. But my dad smoked and my dad drank. I do neither. And then he said, tell me about your brother, Winfred. I have a brother that's 2 years older than me. Okay. And I said, well, my brother, Winfred, has congestive heart failure. But again, my brother's overweight. That has nothing to do with me. And he said, well, the reason I'm asking you these questions, and this is what changed my life. He said, you too have congestive heart failure. Wow. You have what we think is called familiar congestive heart failure. It's nothing that you've done. It's just genetic. You're just genetically predisposed to it. Wow. And of course, that just shook up my world because I literally went to work that Friday and my cardiologist told me that I probably would not be able to go back to work. So the day that I left Friday, I never went back to work. I had to immediately retire from my job. and I had a business here in Houston, a wedding and event planning business, and I had to close my business down as well because of the strain and the stress that it was, on my heart. He gave me my injection fraction, and are you ready for this? My injection fraction was 12%.
Wow. So your heart was pumping at 12%, which is why all of the doctors were asking you how you could walk, you could possibly be walking.
Yes. Yes.
That's amazing. So then what happened? So once you got that diagnosis of familial congestive heart failure, what happened at that point? What kind of treatment were you then subjected to?
Okay, well, once I was diagnosed and I got over the shock, I did ask him, is this something that we can reverse? Is this something that we can treat? Yeah. And he did say, yes, it is something that we can treat. We're going to work with you, if you work with us. Yeah. And that's when he gave me the instructions. He asked me what type of work I did. I did tell him that I was a court officer for the county. And he was very detailed. He tell me exactly what you do day to day. And once I explained my day-to-day job, he was like, I just don't think that that's conducive to congestive heart failure.
Wow.
I think it's just too stressful. I did have to leave the hospital with a life vest. And that life vest was the bane of my existence because I had to wear it 24 hours a day with the exception of a quick shower. Yeah. And I do mean a quick shower. If I lingered too long in the shower, they would call me and say, get out and put your life vest back on.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. And so how long after that did you find yourself connecting to WomenHeart and becoming a champion?
That's an excellent question, Selena. I got no referrals to any support groups. And I actually probably silently, because my family did not know, I was silently depressed for about 2 years because I had no one to talk to. Now, I did share that my brother has congestive heart failure, but I guess men and women process things different. Or his congestive heart failure treatment plan was different from mine. He didn't have to quit his job. He's still working. Wow. So yeah, his EF wasn't, his injection wasn't 12%. Right. So he was like, I don't understand why you're so upset. I don't understand why you're sad. I'm okay. Look at me. But my treatment plan was different. So my lifestyle, changes were different. Yeah. So I kind of suffered, I'm a very strong-willed individual, so I didn't want to let anyone know that I was sad all the time. I was crying all the time. The only person that really knew how I felt was my husband because he lived in the home with me. Yeah. And I didn't get a support group. It took me 2 years to find WomenHeart. Wow. And I literally just kept Googling, and one day it popped up on my in my search.
Thank
that
goodness.
They had a local chapter here in Houston.
And Tannie, what about cardiac rehab? Were you prescribed or referred for cardiac rehab after you're done?
I was not, because my injection fraction was 12%. They did not want me to exert myself.
Got it.
So I was not eligible for cardiac rehab because I had such a low injection fraction. Yeah. What I was my diagnosis and everything, what he did was he gave me meds. I was treated with meds. And of course, I changed my diet and I was able to exercise slightly with walking. Yeah. And I would go to the gym and walk 2 miles a day on the treadmill. And that was it.
Wow. So how has this journey influenced what you're doing now to promote heart healthy behavior in your community?
WomenHeart really gave me my life back, honestly. And I'm not just saying that because I'm speaking with you. It literally gave me back my life. I went to the first meeting and I met this wonderful young lady named Kimberly Connell. She's the leader of the group. And when I got there, I was nervous, didn't know what to expect. She was so welcoming. And as it would be that particular day, no one else showed up to the meeting. It was just Kim and myself.
Wow.
And she was able to really sit down and share with me her experiences, make me feel comfortable. And I knew that I had found the place that I needed to be.
I love that so much. Now, Tannie, how do you think, we'll take on a little different sort of spin on this experience for you. How do you think our cultural practices and beliefs affect heart health? And I'll ask you in particular among Black women. And then the second part of the question is around what misconceptions or falsehoods, let's say, have you heard or encountered through that course of trying to support Black women through their heart journeys?
Okay. I'm going to answer that two ways.
Yeah.
Being a Black female, I feel as though we are treated different in the medical community because there are a lot of assumptions that I eat high fat foods. Nobody ever asked me, did I eat soul food? It was just an assumption that I did. I did have chronic high blood pressure, and the doctor was treating me for that, but they never dug into my history. And when I say I was adamant about going to the doctor on a regular basis, I was.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they were giving me the same treatment that they would have given a person of another race. Even when we got into the hospital, I think that, like I said, I was about to be discharged. And he wanted to just cross his T's and dot his I's. And I think that's why he sent the cardiologist in. But the cardiologist had actually, unbeknownst to me, ordered a few tests before he met with me. And those are the tests that gave him the results that he needed to share with me. So I absolutely and I think that because since I've been diagnosed, of course, I did mention to my cardiologist, you should have referred me to a support group. He was not aware of the support group.
Wow.
But of course, I have made him now aware of the support group, and he is probably one of my biggest cheerleaders in making sure that we share WomenHeart pamphlets and information. He didn't know.
Wonderful. So, I mean, you know, you've had such a rich experience, the ups and the downs. What advice, Tannie, would you offer women who may, let's say, underestimate prioritizing their heart health? I mean, you yourself talked about how, you know, the urgent care doc said you should really go immediately, and then you said, oh, let's run some errands before I go. Right. So having had that experience, what would you advise, or what would you kind of recommend, let's say, to women who may be feeling a little bit, you know, not well, but are saying, you know what, I'm too busy for, you know, to go and get this checked out? What would you say to them?
I would say, listen to your body. I knew something was not right. I would say, advocate for yourself. I knew something was not right. And then I would say, advocate for yourself again. I didn't. I went to the doctors. They were the experts, but they are not the experts of our bodies.
That's right.
And I did not advocate for myself because I honestly can say the doctors were telling me what I wanted to hear, that I was okay.
Yeah.
But deep down, I knew something was off, but I was listening to the doctors. So if I could share one thing and stress it, is ladies, please listen to your bodies. And then when you know something is not right, speak to someone until someone hears you.
You know, Tannie, what strikes me about your story is how many providers, how many doctors knew something about you and didn't tell you in front of your face. Like, this is what's really, you know, you talk about multiple doctors obviously alarmed at what they saw, whether it was your x-ray or your test results, and then calling in your husband or fiance at the time and not sharing the information with you. This is really striking to me. So I guess the other thing I would maybe just add to what you're saying is ask questions. Ask questions. If you know, if you feel, or, you know, something's not right, or you see alarm, you know, I'm guilty of this too. We don't ask enough questions of our providers when it's about us. You know, they take our blood pressure when we go into the doctor's office, but they don't tell you what that blood pressure. I always ask, what's my blood pressure? So anyway, I've learned a lot just listening to your story today. Is there any last thought that you want to leave before we wrap up today, Tannie?
I would say that, I'm grateful because once I did start this journey, I agree with everything that you said. That's when I became my own best advocate.
Yeah.
And I did ask questions. I immediately asked questions. Is this something that can be reversed? Yeah. And then I started advocating for myself. I do now have a pacemaker defibrillator that was implanted into my body. I did not want that either, but I understood that it was necessary. But I made my doctor explain to me why it was medically necessary to put a foreign object into my body. And once he explained to me why I needed it, then it made sense. I mean, because had I not advocated for myself, to be honest with you, Selena, they were getting ready to do a complete hysterectomy on me because I had gained so much weight. And they thought, because of course, African-American women have fibroids, they thought that that was the problem. That's why I was gaining so much weight. Instead of listening to my heart history and running heart, tests, for heart issues.
Wow. This, I really am, I've known you for a couple of years, Tannie, and this is really the first time I've heard in depth your story. And I really appreciate you being so generous with your time and your story and sharing it with our audience. I really also thank you for your insights that you've shared and your passion and commitment, which is clear, to improving the lives of women in your community, in our community, in the WomenHeart community around the country. To everyone else joining us, please follow our social media channels. We will have more content. We're only halfway through Heart Month. We'll have more, as the month goes on. You'll hear even more champion stories just like Tannie throughout our month. We are, we've got our content on our website at womenheart.org /herheart, where you can find further information and resources. I thank you, Tannie. I thank our audience, and I wish everyone a great afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.